What a hockey game. Let's talk about it with Craig Button. Craig, you know, John Cooper, who's such a quotable head coach, said in the second intermission of this hockey game, after Sidney Crosby was injured, he said, this will not be Sid's last game at the Olympics. So how did the rest of this team step up in the absence of their captain using that last man up mentality?
Well, I think that you have a wealth of talent and you have players that we've seen that can flex into different positions. And when you have that luxury, you never want to see Sidney Crosby go down. Obviously, that goes without saying. But because you have that luxury and you have that flexibility in your lineup, and that player was Nick Suzuki. So you have Crosby, Stone, and Marner doing the checking, the great two-way play. You just insert Nick Suzuki over there with Mitch Marner and Mark Stone, and away you go. And not that you don't lose something by not having Crosby, but it becomes a little less obvious because Nick Suzuki is so good. And certainly you have that opportunity. Nick gets in there, takes advantage of that opportunity. Just a great play on the tying goal. And then we see in overtime what Mitch Marner does. But Nick Suzuki, who was playing right wing, moved into the middle when Nathan McKinnon moved up to the wing with McDavid and Celebrini. And it's just showing you what Nick Suzuki can do. And you need players that can adapt, but you also need players that in the case of somebody going down, and a significant player with Sidney Crosby going down, you don't want to just say, okay, we'll have somebody play that position. You have the luxury of having Nick Suzuki slide into that position and perform at a high level.
And Craig, I want to give you your flowers right now because when we talked on the show yesterday and I posed the question to you, we knew Brad Marchand would be coming into this game. A lot of people, Craig, and a lot of people who know a lot about hockey felt that Nick Suzuki was the guy who should come out of the lineup in favor of Brad Marchand. You disagreed with that, and now it looks like you get to have the floor now, Craig, and brag about how smart you were. Because at the end of the day, not only does Suzuki prove people wrong, he noticeably looked better. And you said it. He's playing the position he's supposed to be playing, and it's a huge difference when he's able to do that.
Well, it is, and his IQ is absolutely fantastic. And when you hear him talk post-game, you could see it during the play. He jumps into the play. He's got a longer shift. But he says after the game, he goes, yeah, I knew they were changing, and I didn't want to just dump the puck, and I wanted to kind of keep some pressure and try to keep the puck. And that's exactly what he did. So not only sliding into that position, but thinking how I can take advantage of a scenario. That's Nick Suzuki in a nutshell. He beats you up with his brain. And because he understands all the situations in the game, he also understands, okay, I'm going to play here. This is what I got to do. I'm going to play there. This is what I got to do. And listen, we have so many really bright people, fans right across this country that know the game so well. And what makes the game so beautiful and what makes the fans so wonderful is we can have these debates and disagreements and everything. And there's times when you look at it and go, geez, okay, I'm glad they went that way. And then there's other times you go, well, I'm glad they didn't listen to me. So I think all in all, Nick Suzuki stepping in there, John Cooper and the management staff knew what they had in Nick Suzuki. And boy, was he ever valuable, in not only in an important situation, but losing their captain.
Craig, I want to read a quote to you from Czech head coach Radim Rulík after this hockey game. Very interesting comments from the coach. He said, the referees really worry me. I feel like everyone's afraid to call anything against Canada. We were basically playing against 6 players. The guy deserved a top-level performance from the referees. They always admit afterward that we were right, but nothing ever changes. We should have had power plays against Canada, but they were afraid Pasta or Necas would score another power play goal. Now, Craig, we just showed you the 3-2 Canada goal, or Czechia goal rather, where there were 6 men on the ice. My favorite part of that goal, by the way, is that all 6 of them celebrated together after the goal. But anyway, I digress. Craig, what are your thoughts on those comments? Because I will say, Coach wasn't the only one to make that observation. What did you see in the game on Wednesday?
I thought it was a fantastic game. It was back and forth, the drama, the suspense, everything that went into the game. So when you start to look and say, okay, was this call missed? Was that call missed? How many were missed? One, maybe one each side. I don't know. But when you consider that these players are playing at a high level, the officials are at a high level, it sounds like just sour grapes. And I get it. I get it. You've just poured everything into it. You lose a game and you look back to this moment or that moment. And that, to me, is just frustration coming out in the case of Coach Rulík. But all in all, I don't think there's any big issue here. I don't even think there's a small issue here. You can say that about every game. Could have this been called? Could have that been called? Nobody's against Czechia. Nobody's trying to give Canada every advantage. They're trying to call the game on a standard. And I think the Olympic officiating has been excellent.
Craig, one more for you. And we're going to have Craig on a little later in the show. Don't you worry. More Craig coming. But why do you think, Craig, why do you think Canada was in the position they were in for much of this game, being forced to come from behind once again and win it in overtime?
Okay, so I'm going to give flowers to Coach Rulík from Czechia. You know, in that first game, and I talked about this, they loaded up Pastrnak, Hurdle, and Necas. Well, I thought it became really easy for Canada to just say, okay, we're just going to lock in on these guys. These are their offensive weapons, and we're going to shut them down, and we don't have to worry about any of the other forwards. Well, what Rulík did is he split them up. He put them on different lines. And so he balanced the lines out, put offensive threats on each of the lines. And I think that was significant for Czechia because now other players, you're playing with Pastrnak, you now have to do your part to get him the puck. It's not just like you go out there and go, well, we don't have somebody. You now have players in Necas and Hurdle that you got to do your part. And I thought that Czechia did a really good job of it. The other thing they did, and I give them full marks for this on back-to-back games, they played with speed and they played with quickness and they applied pressure. They had their defense pushing up in the neutral zone, creating turnovers. Great example on the turnover by Mark Stone. Gudas steps up, intercepts it. They weren't backing off. So I think that they came in with a game plan that pushed Canada, that threatened Canada, and just came short of beating Canada.
Craig is going to join me a little later in the show, as I promised. But right now, let's find out who the Canadians will face in the semifinals.